Yes, thank you very much for the invitation, for the organizing committee, for thanks to Elias Stammler and especially that he invited me. I'm happy that I can give my talk. So my talk will be about geroprotectives, which is another name for treating aging with drugs. And it will not be so much from the point of view as a head of a scientific lab, but more from the perspective of a longevity practitioner and head of a longevity clinic. This is rather something new in longevity medicine. For a long time, it was all about lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, and so on. Then it was about supplements. Then it was about hormone replacement therapies. So those were the pillars of practical longevity medicine. But now there are new players in the field, and these are drugs. And the first one definitely was metformin. So you all heard those stories about metformin prolonging life in mice, even though we heard that mice tell lies. But there are studies about metformin also in humans, very spectacular studies that, for example, diabetics, you know that metformin is an old anti-diabetic drug, 60 years on the market. And there are studies that, for example, people diabetics taking metformin live longer than those who do not even have diabetes. And that was one of the reasons that this was then scrutinized, and one of the pioneers in this field is here from Israel, Nir Barzilai, who wrote this book Age Later, and who then started a study called TAME, Targeting Aging with Metformin, a big trial. And that would be the first trial to really study a drug if it has anti-aging properties. And unfortunately, one must say it has not yet started. It's been on the agenda for years now, and it's not yet started due to financial problems. And one of the reasons is that metformin is an old drug, so it cannot be patented anymore. So pharmaceutical companies cannot earn money with that anymore. So there's no pharmaceutical company financing that. On the other hand, one must say, I find it a bit annoying. I mean, if you see that, for example, in the Silicon Valley, there is Google starting Calico with $1.5 billion. There is Jeff Bezos financing Altos Labs with $3.5 billion. We are talking about $1 billion. I mean, why can't Jeff Bezos just give $5 million to finance TAME? I mean, that's peanuts for him, huh? Anybody here in the audience who knows him personally, please just tell me. I mean, that's important. I mean, that is the first drug that we test for longevity qualities, and we can't start a well-designed study like TAME due to a lack of just a few $1 million. Can't be, can it? On the other hand, one has to say, as I say, I'm a practitioner, and we know that many people are already taking it, so they don't wait for studies to be finished and published. So why do they take it? On the one hand, it's been on the market for a long time, so we know the side effects. On the other hand, we are also dealing with, I would call them scientific or medical influences. So, for example, David Sinclair is probably one of the most prominent figures in the field. So when he writes a book of 450 pages, lifespan, why we age and why we don't have to, and then on the very last page, you find all the things that David Sinclair is taking himself, and then there is metformin on it, then next day you have a lot of people in your practice and say, I want this thing that David Sinclair takes as well. So that's why metformin has been popular for quite some time. Many people in the longevity field are taking it. But there are some studies now that are concerning people, and the main thing is not that it has severe side effects, it hasn't, but that it is counteracting the positive effects of sport. And that has been shown in a number of studies, mainly in the master's trial, which is about building muscle, but it's also in endurance sport. So many of my patients I have a lot of patients who are professional sports players, they all stopped it. Many people in the longevity field are at least doing sports ambitiously, and they say, okay, if that is counteracting the effects of sports, then I better leave it. So even before we did TAME, there are now already some people who say, okay, metformin is something like the thing of the past. And this, for example, was a headline in the New York Times, an anti-aging pill, think twice. So, question is there a new kid on the block? People coming to my practice also say, so what's the new, in Germany, was ist der neueste heiße Scheiß? So what is the new hot shit? And it's probably Rapamycin. So what is Rapamycin? It's a drug that was really discovered in Rapa Nui, which we all know as the Easter Island, that's known for these impressive stone figures, and it was discovered there in the 1960s, more or less by chance. And it's produced by a bacterium, Streptomyces hygroscopicus, and then for a long time they had the substance, but didn't really know what to do with it. The first thing, they tried it as an anti-mycotic agent. Then for sometimes they just put it in the refrigerators for almost 20 years. And then they took it out again. Then they were using it as an immunosuppressive drug. And that is the official indication of rapamycin nowadays as well. But obviously, it has some striking anti-aging properties as well. And that was one of the first articles published on this, that it was really extending the lifespan of mice. We are again with mice. But the thing is, once it was elderly mice that were treated, so it's not like in many studies you have to start very young to have an effect. They were examining elderly mice. And the thing is, it was not only that the general lifespan, the average lifespan of those mice was increasing, but they were even living longer than their usual lifespan was. And that was something quite extraordinary. So that was the abstract of this very first study. And how did it work? It worked mainly by inhibition of the TOR signaling pathway. And TOR, that is the thing that is on the market, by the way, with Rapamycin. And so what is the TOR signaling pathway? Actually, it is a pathway in our body that is then counting how many calories are there and what is the state of energy in the body. And if there is a lot of calories, if there's a lot of protein, then the TOR pathway will go into the direction growth and proliferation. And if there is little energy in the body, then the TOR pathway will go into the direction maintenance and repair. And we heard from many lectures this morning that the elder you get, the more damage is there in your body, and the more decisive it is, the more important it is to go into the repair models. Okay, so this is really then target of rapamycin. That is also shows how important rapamycin is in our body. How do you usually switch this pathway from growth to repair? It's not by taking rapamycin, but it's by fasting, by calorie restriction. That is the main way that calorie restriction is beneficial to your body. We know that for decades. So fasting in its different forms is one of the most efficient longevity therapies. And the reason is that when you're fasting, then you come into a calorie deficiency, and when you come into a calorie deficiency, then mTOR is going into the repair mode. Okay, so that's why fasting is beneficial, but that is a good thing about fasting. What is the bad thing about fasting?
You don't like it.
Exactly. People don't like to do it. So that is why there has been a long research for so-called CR mimetics, calorie restriction mimetics, substances that just more or less cheat the body by giving the wrong signal. There is a calorie restriction, and by that influencing the TOR pathway. And so there are different things. Resveratrol was one of the substances that was first discussed as CR mimetics, also by David Sinclair. And now it's drugs. So it is mainly, of course, rapamycin, but in an indirect way, metformin is working like that as well. So that's mainly by influencing AMPK. So how can you prove this? Again, we heard about the general organisms that we have. So those are fruit flies, that is the worms, that is mice. And more ambitious, there was the dog aging project. So dogs are very similar when it comes to their biology to ours. And there was the first small dog aging project, which was done just with a few dozens of dogs. And it worked quite well. And then they decided to really do it on a big scale with thousands of dogs. And they were writing to dog owners all over the United States if they would like to participate. So one of the things was the dog had to be more than 7 years old and so on, all these things. And that was just an essay. They didn't know how the response would be. And the response was overwhelming. 10,000 of dog owners were responding to that and said, we want to be part of this study. So quite spectacular. However, just like TAME, the dog aging project had financial problems. Because of course it's costly. That is the one thing. The other thing is there were some worries about how scientific is it. And the main worry was, if we send the rapamycin to these dog owners, are they really giving it to their dogs, or are they taking it themselves? Yeah. So there were quite some concerns about that, but dog owners really love their dogs. So that was then quite clear after a while that they were really not taking it themselves, but feeding it to their animals. And so the good news now is the $7 million that cost the dog aging project are there, and it can be started. What about humans? One has to say studies on humans are scarce. With metformin, we've been treating humans for decades. And there are millions of diabetic people. So rapamycin has been there only for a few years, and it's been used especially on people who had an organ transplant. So those are quite few. So okay, 5 minutes. I have to hurry up. Okay. That is why there are not very many good studies on rapamycin in humans. Again, it's more or less a thing then of influences. So there is quite a big group, especially in the United States, of rapamycin users, and they all meet weekly in groups in the internet, and they exchange themselves about their personal experiences. One of the new influences now, for example, is Peter Attia, also one of the new kids on the block, and when he writes in his very successful book Outlive that he himself is taking rapamycin, then again people will come to your clinic and say, okay, I want this Peter Attia stuff that he is taking. Another one who is taking it is Brian Johnson, who is also something like a role model for many people, followed by many people, and he was taking rapamycin as well. Usually it's an immunosuppressive agent. So that is not usually something that we combine with longevity, impressing your immune system. So obviously the key is timing. So patients who are taking it as an immunosuppressive are taking it daily with 4 to 6 milligrams. And in the longevity community, I would say, they are taking it something like once a week or only every 2 weeks in a dosage of something like 8 to 10 milligrams. Again, this is not the result of a big scientific study. This is the result of people meeting themselves in the internet, exchanging ideas, and I do it this way, I do it this way. So that's not the kind of science we want, but that is what is being practiced right now. So that is, timing is key. Still, even if you do it like that, it does have some side effects. So the immunosuppression is there, damage to mucous membranes, especially in the mouth. And that was one of the reasons that, for example, Brian Johnson announced a few months ago that he stopped taking rapamycin. Okay, again, not due to some scientific papers that have been published, but due to personal experiences that he made. So, what's the future of rapamycin? We don't know. We are still lacking the big human studies. Maybe in the end it will be just anti-aging for the dogs, but that would be a progress as well. Finally, are there other drugs? Yes, GLP-1 analogous, for example, are now being discussed as longevity drugs as well. So they have been probably the most successful drugs during the last decades, being used against obesity. But what do? They reduce peritoneal fat. And peritoneal fat is the main source of silent inflammation. That is where silent inflammation is coming from. And silent inflammation is one of the main hallmarks of aging. So if you reduce this, then you can really see that, for example, high-sensitive CRP, which is the main laboratory marker of silent inflammation, is being reduced significantly. So there is now really a discussion that are we just going to use it for the classical indication, that is BME higher than 30 or BME of 28 combined with obesity-related disease, or shall we try it really in people with just very moderate overweight as a longevity drug? So these are the three ones. In general, one has to say all these three drugs are so-called repurposed drugs. So their initial purpose was not to treat aging, but completely different: diabetes, immunosuppression, obesity, and so on. And now we use it in the longevity field. What we are still waiting for are specific drugs against aging. Senolytics have been announced also for years, We are still waiting for that. Rapamycin, many drug companies are working on them, working like Rapamycin, but with less side effects. Not yet there. So all in all, one has to say, yes, it's a promising field, but what we see now in geroprotectives and drugs against aging is more or less using old drugs with a new purpose, and the real breakthroughs we are still waiting for. It's a lot of promises, but right now there are more promises than products. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Precisely 20 minutes, so maybe one question. Yes?
I'm trying to calculate. I guess that the rapamycin has an effect of antibiotic, right?
It's more antimycotic than antibiotic. It's produced by bacteria to defend themselves against fungal infection.
So it must have some effect on the microbiome.
Yes.
And changes the whole flora of the...
Yeah.
So could it be actually that if you could change the microbiome in other ways without using the rapamycin, you'll get the same effect?
A similar one, at least, yes. And I mean, the microbiome or the change of the microbiome while you're getting older is also one of the hallmarks of aging. I mean, it's getting less effective, it's losing its diversity, you get leaky gut and so on. So influencing the microbiome definitely is one of the possible therapeutics that we have. But we do that already with prebiotics, probiotics, changing diets. Metformin is working on the microbiome as well. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jacob.